Since 2019, building with OpenAI's frontier models meant Microsoft Azure was your only option. On April 27th, that exclusive arrangement was officially dismantled. The shift was immediate. Within 24 hours of restructuring the partnership, OpenAI announced it was bringing its models, including the newly released GPT 5.5, to Amazon Web Services. For enterprise buyers, this decouples the cloud decision from the model decision. The era of being forced into Azure infrastructure just to access GPT is over. This leaves CIOs with a choice. Do you keep your existing Azure contracts, or do you start moving those AI workloads onto the cloud where your business already operates? Over the next 3 to 6 months, enterprise procurement is going to shift as teams weigh the costs of maintaining a separate Azure relationship against the simplicity of a single cloud setup. To understand the trade-offs, we have to look at the new boundaries of the Microsoft agreement. The 2019 deal made Azure the exclusive home for every OpenAI workload, but the new terms remove that restriction. OpenAI is now free to sell its models through Amazon Web Services, through Google Cloud, or any other provider they choose. Microsoft isn't exiting the picture. They retain non-exclusive rights to OpenAI's intellectual property through 2032. They also receive a direct share of revenue until 2030. This ensures Microsoft remains OpenAI's primary financial backer, keeping them deeply integrated. This means that even if you move your workloads to AWS, your usage still indirectly supports the Microsoft AI ecosystem. For most AWS native companies, the primary reason to move is data gravity. Running OpenAI models through Amazon Bedrock allows you to keep your AI workloads right next to your existing data lakes. This unification eliminates the need for complex multi-cloud routing and cuts out the high data egress costs of moving information between Azure and AWS. It also simplifies your security posture. You can apply your existing AWS permissions and compliance frameworks to your AI models without managing a second set of credentials on Azure. Previously, AWS customers had to treat Azure as a separate silo just for model access, a setup that added significant operational friction. Consolidating on AWS Bedrock turns AI from a separate infrastructure project into a native feature of your existing data stack. However, leaving Azure means giving up a major strategic advantage: day one access to the newest models. While the exclusivity is gone, the revised contract gives Microsoft explicit first access rights to all new OpenAI releases. This chart of the GPT 5.5 launch illustrates the gap. Azure got the model immediately, while AWS Bedrock followed later. If your product relies on the absolute latest capabilities, that delay between the Azure launch and AWS launch is a significant risk. Azure has shifted from being the only place to host OpenAI to being the place where you can host it first. For teams on the bleeding edge, that timing is the only thing that matters. You might have seen headlines about the removal of the AGI clause from the Microsoft contract, but it's important to look at what that actually means for your roadmap. The original deal stated that if OpenAI achieved artificial general intelligence, software that matches human cognitive levels, Microsoft's rights to that technology would end. By removing this clause, the two companies have untangled a massive legal hurdle, simplifying how they share intellectual property, in a future where the definition of AI is constantly shifting. While this is a major corporate milestone, it has no impact on your current strategy. Your deployment over the next year depends on the APIs available today, not the legal definitions of HEI. Choosing your hosting provider now comes down to a choice between infrastructure efficiency and speed to market. To decide, start here. Is your foundational data already living on AWS or Google Cloud? If it is, ask yourself if having day one access to a new model like GPT 5.5 is a mission-critical competitive advantage for your product. If you can wait a few weeks for model updates in exchange for lower costs and simpler data management, you are a consolidator. Consolidators should move their workloads to AWS Bedrock to eliminate the friction of a multi-cloud setup. But if your value proposition is being the first to ship the latest frontier AI features, you are an edge competitor. Edge competitors should maintain their Azure contracts, absorbing the complexity of two clouds to ensure they never lose that first mover advantage. The choice is no longer about which cloud Microsoft wants you to use, it's about which one fits your specific business priorities. The landscape has cleared, and the path forward for enterprise buyers is more direct than it has ever been. OpenAI's models are now officially cross-platform, ending the one-to-one link between the industry's leading models and a single cloud provider. AWS, Google Cloud, and Azure are now in a direct race to win your OpenAI workloads. This means these giants have to compete on the quality of their infrastructure, their security, and their pricing, rather than relying on a locked door. You finally have the leverage to build your AI architecture exactly where it makes the most sense for your business.